Hey, Narcissist Ninjas here. Rabbit culture of Narcissist Ninjas. Come over and see us on Facebook, please. And let us know that you heard a couple of our videos. I'm just starting this. I have no clue what I'm doing, but guess what? I do have a microphone now because somebody messaged me and said, what the heck are you doing over there? Please get a microphone. So I have a microphone. I have no clue. Listen. I have no clue about doing videos, but guess what? I love the topic of narcissism. I have grown so much since identifying this in our culture, and I just want to present that to the world somehow, some way. I do it on my page on Facebook, and I want to try to do it here. It's new for me, but I'm trying, struggling. So anyway, I decided to do this topic of Carol Baskin and the Tiger King, Joe Exotic, because, well, it's interesting for one, and because of my own experience, I guess, with animal rescue and my own foray into it. And I highly believe that there is a definite correlation between animal rescuers and antisocial behavior. Now, hey, that's not always a bad thing. I became deeply involved with animal rescue at a very young age. I was exposed to animal abuse in my community, in my home. Speaking of animals, I have a macaw bird climbing up my computer right now. I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll keep trying. So, I had a family member who killed my dog with a baseball bat when I was around 13. And if I could pinpoint one defining moment in my childhood, I had a fair number of traumas, but if I was to pinpoint one of the hardest traumas looking back, would be probably that situation. I always loved animals from the get-go, from my first breath, but after that, I guess I got a little more obsessed with my love for animals. Now, I did go through a number of years where I never went near a dog after that, till I was in my 20s and was out on my own. But I still loved other animals and still tried to rescue birds birds would fall from the trees and little shrews. And where I grew up there, we had these things called shrews. They're like baby little mice, and our cats would get them and half kill them. And I would take them, put them in boxes, put them under my bed and scare everyone. But I was trying to, heal these little creatures and put them back into the wild. And I was successful at times. And then other times they would die underneath my bed. Fun times. But anyway, I became very engrossed with, especially as an adult, I began rescuing animals that were always in very difficult situations, and always wanted to make sure that I was there in their time of death. That was my biggest concern, because I didn't want them to be alone. I didn't want them to suffer, because I think when I look at it, I tell you, I'm a psychologist's dream, but I can pinpoint, I can put pieces together, and I'm sure that my need, almost like a desperation of needing to be there with animals at the end, was because, I couldn't be there for my little doggy when I was a kid. And I still to this day can't even talk about parts of that. But, I can talk about it in a very general kind of way. So anyway, this case, I believe, and like I said, so then my personal experience was that, yes, in some ways I'm very antisocial. I believe in that I do find sometimes human relationships difficult. However, I consider myself an empath. Whereas I believe these two characters that we look at here, Carol Baskin and the other guy, Tiger King, I believe they come from a different place. They come from a narcissistic, let's use these animals as tools for their own egos, their own livelihoods. And I think the two personalities are both deeply, possibly, we can't, of course we can't diagnose, right? Remember, we can't say anything like, it's possible that such personalities can feed off of each other in a narcissistic way, in a give and take supply of the need for attention, the need for consumables and materialism and all these things. And if we also look into the lives of these individuals, we have heard about some of the traumas that they both experienced in their early childhoods as well, to kind of formulate their personalities, such as that. I mean, both of these characters, somehow they intertwined and set up some kind of a dysfunctional rabbit hole. And it was amazing when you look at, I don't know if you saw the Netflix documentary. Most people did. So I would suggest, if you want to know more about this case, that's where you get the details over there. And of course, again, I said this before, but when we're looking at these different public figures or, celebrities, or whatever, we see snippets. We see, if we're presented with enough information, we can kind of come to our own conclusions, but no one knows exactly, right? So, I mean, but we can look at it like in that film and in different interviews of this guy, especially, his relationships were pretty dysfunctional, and they seemed to have a power dynamic to them, wrapped around with money and sex, and kind of like he had to be a little bit put on a pedestal in his personal relationships, or things got ugly, and which are very narcissistic traits, right? I found it fascinating too that during the recent election process, when he was really going hard at the ex-president about wanting to get pardoned, I found that kind of fascinating too. He really felt he's a major victim. And granted, I mean, anyone that's in jail wants to get out, but he really sees himself as a victim. And I mean, any character that ends up even you look at people that do commit murder and, these things, in some ways you can see over time where they have been victimized in some way, oftentimes, which leads them into becoming narcissistic, So, yes, I'm sure he is a victim, but so are millions of other people that are in jail with illnesses, without their makeup, without their hairstylist. I'm sorry, I just found that a very interesting part to the whole dynamic of the case. He's in jail now, and I don't know. He's pretty sick from what I've read, so I don't know how it's going to end up there. So this is Teo and I, and that's me in my Tiger King shirt. Yeah, no, it's not actually. It's actually from the Big Cat Rescue. It's my t-shirt from the Big Cat Rescue. I think Teo put too many holes in it now, and it's gone to the t-shirt graveyard. But that's Teo, my macaw, who's quite the character, who came from a very, very... she was left to die in a store in Virginia that eventually got shut down, and I literally had to get animal control involved, and there was it was heading toward the courts, and then they finally released her to me. It was a messy situation. I fought hard to get her to basically definitely rescued her. She was left to die in the bottom of an aviary with many other large birds. She was just born, and she had a broken claw, whatever. And they were leaving her there, and she was starving, and she couldn't climb up to fend for herself, and they weren't giving her medical care. So she's 10 years old now. So my foray into animal rescue has taught me that there's a lot of very dysfunctional people, just from my own interactions with people over the years that have been involved in different organizations and different groups. And I stopped myself. It was about probably 10 years ago, around the time when the Michael Vick situation happened. I had a small part to play with that when I went in and helped a group. And I'll probably make a video about that sometime. But that taught me, from that point on, I didn't want to get involved with any of these groups there. And people, I'm telling you, people threaten each other. People hate each other. People, I've seen people threaten to kill others over animal rescue. And I can understand the passion. I can understand the feelings of frustration seeing an animal, a little innocent living being that cannot take care of themselves. However, I just think some people get lost in it, and it all stems back from childhood trauma. And there's like two kinds of people: the empaths that are out rescuing, and the narcissists who are sometimes in control of these groups and cause a lot of harm, steal money. Oh man, so many things happen. And they pick and choose certain animals to rescue. It's just baffling. So I got myself out of it about 10 years ago, and I'm getting older, I'm getting tired. So I'm only, doing things on my own right now. And I keep saying no more, but there's always a case that crosses my path, and I end up getting involved. So I'll link a copy of this study that I read today when I was looking at this topic. I'll link it below, and it talks about how there was a study done in nonprofits to try to encourage narcissists to donate to causes and so on. And it seems if donations and activity, you want to get involved with a nonprofit, if narcissists get a lot of attention and they get puffed up and get a lot of supply by giving, then they will get involved. And that is worth an analysis for, especially if you want to get involved, like with different groups or nonprofits. And we see it in politics for sure. I mean, with everything exploding with the pandemic, I think what happened was it just allowed everything that was under the surface to rise up. And narcissism was always there. This level of narcissism in our culture was already there. It's just that the pandemic situation allowed circumstances to put pressure on individuals so that it came out. And when I remember talking to a friend of mine when it first started, and I said, oh my God. And I can look back at the memes and everything I was making back in March of last year, and they were all about the narcissists are coming. You better watch out, because when there's pressure, when there's limited supply, limited ways for narcissists to get their supply, they're going to come out of the woodwork in many horrible ways. And that is exactly what happened. And it was just way worse than any of us, I think, could imagine. And I believe our pandemic, we can handle this coronavirus. What we cannot handle and what is not being handled correctly is the damn narcissism pandemic. And it came out of the woodwork. Those of us in recovery from abuse, I think we are more, in some ways, more prepared to deal with these situations and to deal with the pandemic than people who have never experienced this type of traumatic environment, right? A lot of us have been struggling our whole lives to survive. And this was just another level. And it was like all the skills that we learned as children and as recovery people, we really got to put them in action during the pandemic. And I'm only bringing that up because if you look at it, this case came out. Look, this has been stewing for years. When did it come to the surface? Right now, when circumstances were tight, when things were closing in and things were locking down, the reality of situations burst open. And 2020 is when Baskin and King, it all came crushing down on them. So they are just an example of smaller organizations that don't deal with millions of dollars, that don't deal with big animals, but deal with dogs, deal with pit bulls, deal with birds. They're just an example of what's going on in the rescue community and everywhere else too. It's going on everywhere. Narcissism is not, and we can just see narcissistic traits in many of these situations. We don't know, right? Not over here diagnosing. You may not be, but I am in my head. No, we're not. No, just kidding. No, this, I don't even know if anyone will ever listen to my video, so I don't have to worry about it, right? However, that article, like I said, I'm going to link it below. It's worth a read. It's worth giving a little look about. For it's not just on nonprofit. It can be linked to people in politics and education, in the medical field. I mean, narcissism is everywhere, right? People with narcissistic traits. Well, I didn't think I could talk for like 5 minutes on this, but I've gone on and on and on, haven't I? 20 minutes. Whoo! I feel that's a big accomplishment because, I'm over here just trying to give my experience, my exposure, and my understanding of what I know about narcissism that I've learned, especially the past 2 years. And if you are involved in an organization, not just a personal relationship, but if you're involved in an organization and you see these traits, you know what? Just like in a personal situation, get out. Your energy, your vibe, what you have to offer. Especially if you're an empath, you don't need your energy drained and sucked. And you can, if it is animal rescue, you can do it on your own. You can form your own group. You can just have rescues in your own home. You can educate your own community in your own way. You can do things, getting involved with dysfunctional nonprofit, or for like these two, for profit, we can see where it can lead, how deep. I didn't even talk about what their story is, because if you've been watching the news, there's murder involved, there's theft involved, it looks like sexual abuse too. Some of those characters in Tiger King's community the situation seemed kind of shady. And I got the vibe of sexual abuse going on there somewhere too. So all these things are happening. And that's just an huge example of what can be going on in some of these more dysfunctional groups. So just be careful. Leave. You're a worthy person, and you do not need to be exposed to such negativity. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm not going to do that like and subscribe. No, I can't do it. I can't. Maybe sometime I will. I can't. Anyway, hope you like this. Bye.